What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So I will be making schedule predictions for every single Power 5 team in college football for this upcoming season. And I'll also do a subsequent conference standings video once I finish every single team in a specific conference, just as a synopsis of all of my schedule predictions. Those synopsis videos will be coming later on in August as we get closer to the start of the season. For now, I have to finish up all of the individual ones, so let's go ahead and get into the Arizona State schedule predictions. So some quick thoughts on the Arizona State program as a whole heading into 2022, and this is a program that has been surrounded by controversy in recent years with lots of off-the-field drama. Then add into that some crazy high roster turnover through the transfer portal, and things are pretty interesting for Arizona State at this point. Now, Herm Edwards is back as the head coach. He leads the Sun Devils here again, and he's been a pretty good hire, all things considered. He's got Arizona State to where they hover in that 6 to 8 win range most years, and that's a good season for a lot of Power 5 programs, assuming you ignore his off-the-field controversies and questions that people may have there. Just focusing on the on-the-field stuff, he's been a pretty good hire. However, it is starting to get to the point now where you have to wonder if Edwards is going to be able to take this program to that next level to get them up beyond the 6 to 8 wins a year, make them a true contender in the Pac-12. And unfortunately, with all of the turmoil around the program at this point, I just don't see that happening this year. And while I don't expect them to be bad by any means, I don't expect them to be a great team either. There's just too many moving parts, too much off-the-field stuff, not enough continuity, and too much unknown for me to really expect them to be a great team that can compete for the conference. So now let's look at some games where the opponent just has almost no chance of winning against Arizona State, barring catastrophe, and therefore they're not worth spending much time on, and those games are Northern Arizona and Eastern Michigan. Neither of those teams have much of a chance against Arizona State. So the first game we are going to talk about comes in Week 2 when they go on the road to Oklahoma State. Now, Oklahoma State, I think, is a much better team than Arizona State at this point, and that says more about Oklahoma State than it does about Arizona State, in my opinion. I think Oklahoma State is probably the best team in the Big 12. At the very least, they're one of the best teams in the Big 12. I think they're probably going to be a double-digit win kind of year for them. And so I think especially playing them on the road with all of the new pieces and stuff going around at Arizona State, even if things go really well for them there, they're going to be a pretty big underdog. They should be a pretty big underdog. I'm not going to say they can't win that game, but I don't think it's very likely. I'm going to go with Oklahoma State to win pretty handedly there in Week 2. And then Week 4 is the next game up, and that is against Utah, and they get Utah at home. But similar to Oklahoma State, I think Utah is going to be very, very good next year, arguably the best team in the Pac-12. I don't think Arizona State is going to be able to run even with them. I think that Arizona State has a chance in this game. They're good enough to be competitive, and if things fall their way, maybe they can make a run at this one. But I do think Utah is a much better team than them at this point. I'm going to go with Utah to win there in Week 4. Which brings up Week 5, another one that is just going to be a tough matchup for them. They are on the road at USC. USC is certainly going to have the quarterback advantage. They probably have a roster advantage. Arizona State might be able to beat them up front, but that's really not how their team is built either. And so I don't think they're going to be able to compete with USC there on the road with Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley and all that going on. I'm not as high on USC as some people are, but I do think that they're going to win this game. So have Arizona State losing in that one. And then they head into another tough conference game. They have a really rough 3-game stretch here. And they're at home against Washington. And this is, of the 3 games that we're talking about here, definitely the one they have the best chance of winning. I think Washington is still a better program and team than Arizona State at this point, but not dramatically so. They're much more comparable. They're much more even, in my opinion, than they are with USC or Utah. And Arizona State's at home, so they do have a good chance in this one. I just like Washington a little bit better than Arizona State at this point. Like I said, I think they're close, but I do think Washington is the better team by a little bit. And again, I think with all of the off-the-field stuff and all of the huge roster overhaul, close games like this, it's harder to decide with Arizona State because of that. So I'm going to go with Washington to win in this one. Then Arizona State gets a much-needed bye week coming off those 3 tough games, and they go on the road at Stanford. Now, Stanford is not a pushover team. They're not a team to take lightly and ignore. They're also not what they used to be, though. They're not a powerhouse program in the Pac-12 at this point, as far as football is concerned, and I don't think that's going to change too much heading into this year. Now, it's one that you're definitely going to want to be wary of. Definitely a game that Arizona State could lose. They're not dramatically better than Stanford. Now, they are the better team, though, and they're coming off a bye week as well. So I'm going to go with Arizona State to win in that one. Definitely one to keep an eye on, though. Week after that, they are on the road at Colorado, and Colorado, probably one of your bottom 2 or 3 teams in the conference at this point. They're just not in a great spot. Now, being at Colorado is always a tough place to play. Teams always struggle there. But I do think that Arizona State is just better than Colorado by a large enough margin that it's not going to matter all that much. I think Arizona State probably wins pretty big in this one as well. Then they get another tough home game against UCLA, and this would be a huge one if they could find a way to win. UCLA, one of the better teams in the conference at this point, but they're still definitely within striking range of Arizona State as well. One that they could very well and should very well be competitive in. I don't think they're as good at UCLA as at this point. I think UCLA, like I said, is the better team there. I'm going to go with UCLA to get the win, but one where, especially at home, if some things fall their way, then this is one that they could look to get a nice sort of upset kind of win there late in the season against UCLA. Could really help to change the trajectory of their season in some ways. Next game up is at Washington State, and this is one where I do think they're the better team. Now, it's not an easy place to go play either, but I do think that they're the better team. Washington State is good enough, though, to make this one competitive. It's not one to take lightly and take for granted by any means. I'm definitely going to say that Arizona State gets the win here, though. Like I said, I think they're the better team in this matchup. Probably like a 60-40, 70-30 split to Arizona State in this one. So definitely a losable game and a game that should be pretty close, but not one that I think you should be too worried about if you're an Arizona State fan. And so I'm going to go with them to get that win. Next game up for them is home against Oregon State. Oregon State, another one of those teams that's just kind of towards that bottom half of the conference. They're not as good of a program as Arizona State is at this point, even with all of the off-the-field stuff and all of the transfer stuff going on. Oregon State is not as good of a program as Arizona State is at this point. I'm going to go with Arizona State to win pretty big in that one. And then they round out the season on the road against Arizona on a Friday. Yeah, they get a short week heading into this one, but so does Arizona, if we're being honest. And also, Arizona's just not a very good team. They're probably going to be the worst team in the conference at this point. It's not a game that you can just assume that Arizona State will win, but also it's one that they absolutely should win, and they should win pretty handedly. So I'm going to go with them to cap off the season with a strong win there. So that would make Arizona State 7-5 on the season, which is a pretty respectable record considering the off-the-field issues and the transfer portal chaos they've experienced, like I talk about. But it is also a little bit disappointing because it kind of shows that they haven't grown very much in recent years either, and they're still in that 6 to 8 win range that they've been in for a little while now. And while it is a respectable range to be in, it's not anything to sneeze at, it's not the end goal either. And you'd like to see them eventually start to take that next step at some point. And this season could end up slightly better than 7-5, maybe an 8-4 or maybe a 9-3 if they can get a nice upset win against like a Washington or a UCLA or something like that. But you could also see it slide the other way if they lose to at Washington State or at Stanford or something along those lines. So I'm going to go with 7-5. I think this is the most reasonable, kind of splitting the difference there. And it is basically right on track with what they tend to do on average. And even with all of the controversy around them, I think they're going to be just fine. And yeah, so 7-5 is where I have Arizona State finishing this season. Anyway, though, that'll do it for this one. Let me know down below in the comment section where you guys agree and or disagree with me on the Arizona State schedule in 2022. Tell me what record you think they're going to have next year and who, if anybody, they're going to lose to. Also, if you've made it this far in the video, be sure to go ahead and leave a like because it does help out the channel tremendously. It lets me know you're enjoying this kind of content. And subscribe for more college football content in the future. Like I said, I will be making one of these for every single Power 5 team. I finished the SEC, the ACC, and the Big 12. Working on the Pac-12 now. Right after that, we're going to go on to the Big 10. So a lot of content already out. Check that out if you haven't. A lot of content coming your way, so be on the lookout for that stuff. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time.